My name is Mia Bennett. I'm 32 years old, and until a few months ago, I believed being the responsible daughter meant my family trusted me. I was wrong. In my family, being responsible only meant they expected me to accept less, ask fewer questions, and clean up every mess my older brother created. The night I finally understood that, I was sitting inside my late grandmother's dining room with 6 people gathered around the table. A real estate contract was open in front of me. A pen had been placed directly beside my hand. My older brother Ethan was smiling as though the deal had already closed. The real estate agent kept checking her watch. A representative from the title company was arranging documents into neat stacks, while my mother sat across from me with the calm expression of someone who believed I had no choice. She pushed the pen toward me and said, "You just need to sign, Mia. This house was never really yours." I looked down at the signature line. My full legal name was printed beneath it. Mia Bennett, seller, 50% ownership interest. I read those words twice before looking back at my mother. For almost 2 years, my family had insisted that my grandmother left the entire house to Ethan. They told me I received nothing because I already had a stable career, no children, and no urgent need for financial help. I had believed them. I had accepted it. I had even apologized for asking questions. But now they were trying to sell the house for $640,000. And suddenly, the property that had supposedly never belonged to me could not be sold without my signature. I picked up the pen. My mother relaxed. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Then I placed the pen on top of the contract and said, "I'm not signing anything tonight." The room went silent. Ethan's smile disappeared first. My mother's face hardened. The real estate agent glanced at the title representative, who immediately looked down at his documents as though he wanted no part of what was about to happen. My mother lowered her voice. "Don't start this, Mia." "I'm not starting anything. I'm asking why my name is listed as an owner." "We've already explained this. No, you told me Grandma left the house to Ethan." "She did." "Then why does the title company say I own half of it?" Ethan leaned forward. "It's a technicality." I looked at him. "A technicality worth $320,000? His jaw tightened. My mother pulled the contract closer to herself. "You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. I think it was complicated before I got here." The buyers, a middle-aged couple named Paul and Denise Hanley, shifted uncomfortably at the far end of the table. They had planned to renovate the house and move in before Christmas. Neither of them had been told there might be an ownership dispute. My mother forced a smile in their direction. "This is just a misunderstanding." Then she looked at me again. "Your brother has already made financial commitments based on this sale. That sounds like something he should have discussed with me before committing my share." "It isn't your share." The title representative cleared his throat. "Legally, Miss Bennett appears to hold an undivided 1/2 interest in the property." My mother glared at him. "You said this could be resolved with a signature." "It can, but the signature has to be voluntary." Ethan pushed his chair back so quickly that the wooden legs scraped across the floor. "You're seriously going to ruin this over paperwork?" I stared at him. "You told me Grandma gave you everything. She wanted me to have the house. That isn't what the title says. You don't even need it." There it was. Not an explanation, not an apology. Just the same sentence my family had used whenever they wanted me to surrender something. You don't need it. When I was 14 and Ethan wrecked the car my father had promised I could use after I learned to drive, I was told Ethan needed transportation for work more than I did. When I was 20 and our parents used part of my college savings to cover Ethan's credit card debt, I was told I had scholarships and didn't need the money as much as he did. When I was 28 and spent nearly every weekend helping my grandmother, I was told I had always been the responsible one. Responsibility, in my family, was not something you were rewarded for. It was something they used to explain why you should accept less. I stood up from the table. I'm going to review everything with my own attorney. My mother's voice sharpened. You are not bringing a lawyer into this family. A lawyer is already involved. He's sitting 3 chairs away from me. The title representative raised both hands. I'm not representing anyone individually. I'm here to verify that the title can be transferred. And can it? Not without your signature. I picked up my purse. My mother stood. Mia, sit down. I continued toward the door. Ethan moved in front of me. You can't just walk away. I'm not walking away. I'm pausing a transaction involving property I apparently own. You don't understand what's at stake. Then send me every document and let me understand. His face turned red. There isn't time. That sounds like another problem you created without me. He stepped closer. For a moment, I thought he might grab my arm. Then Denise Hanley said quietly, Let her leave. Everyone looked at her. She looked directly at my brother. She clearly wasn't informed. We're not signing anything under these circumstances. Paul closed the folder in front of him. The real estate agent gathered her papers. My mother's plan was collapsing in real time, and she blamed only one person. Me. You are embarrassing this family, she said. I opened the front door. No, Mum. I think I'm finally paying attention to it. I drove home with my hands locked around the steering wheel. My phone began ringing before I reached the end of the block. First my mother, then Ethan, then my Aunt Laura, then my cousin Rachel. I didn't answer any of them. By the time I reached my apartment, I had 11 missed calls and a family group message filled with variations of the same accusation. You blindsided everyone. Ethan could lose everything. Grandma wanted peace. Why are you being so greedy? That last message came from my Aunt Laura. Greedy. I sat in my car and stared at the word. For 3 years, I had organised my grandmother's medications, driven her to medical appointments, paid for groceries when she refused to admit her pension was stretched too thin, and slept on the couch whenever she was too weak to be alone. Ethan visited when he needed money, yet I was greedy because I refused to sign away half a house I had only discovered I owned 30 minutes earlier. I turned off my phone and went upstairs. My grandmother's name was Evelyn Bennett. Most people called her Evie, but Ethan and I called her Grandma Rose because she had grown rose bushes along the back fence for as long as I could remember. Her house was a 2-story brick home on Maple Avenue, built in the 1950s. It had squeaky stairs, narrow closets, and a kitchen that had not been remodeled since before I was born. It was not elegant, but it was the safest place in my childhood. My parents fought often when Ethan and I were young. My father travelled for work and eventually stopped coming home altogether. After the divorce, my mother worked long hours and carried her anger into every room. Grandma Rose's house was different. She never yelled across rooms. She never compared us. She never told me I was too sensitive or told Ethan that rules did not apply because he was having a difficult time. At her house, if one of us broke something, that person cleaned it up. If one of us wanted the last piece of pie, we cut it in half. When Ethan forgot my birthday one year, Grandma Rose made him sit at the kitchen table and write me a card. She believed love was not a feeling you claimed. It was a pattern of behaviour. As we grew older, Ethan learned how to perform that pattern only when he needed something. He could be charming. He remembered names, told funny stories, and made people feel as though every idea he had was exciting. He was also incapable of maintaining a budget. At 22, he opened a mobile car detailing business with money borrowed from our mother. It lasted 8 months. At 26, he invested in a friend's fitness supplement company. The company disappeared with most of his savings. At 30, he announced that he had finally discovered his real calling, restaurants. He had never managed a restaurant or worked in one beyond a summer job in high school, but he convinced our mother that he understood what the neighbourhood needed. A modern comfort food restaurant with locally sourced ingredients. My mother used part of her retirement savings to help him lease a building. Grandma Rose refused to invest. That caused the first serious break between them. Ethan called her unsupportive. Grandma told him support and financing were not the same thing. He stayed away from her house for nearly 4 months. When he returned, he brought flowers and acted as though nothing had happened. Grandma accepted the flowers but did not give him money. I worked as a financial analyst for a regional healthcare company. I earned a comfortable salary, lived below my means, and kept an emergency fund. To my family, that meant I was rich. In reality, it meant I checked my bank account before spending money and did not invest in businesses I knew nothing about. When Grandma Rose's health began declining, everyone assumed I would take responsibility. No one asked. My mother called one afternoon and said, "You're closer to her office, so you should take her to the cardiologist." That first appointment became another, then another. Soon I was managing her calendar, organising prescriptions, and preparing meals she could freeze. I didn't resent helping her. I loved her. What hurt was the way my family treated my time as though it had no cost. If I cancelled dinner plans to stay with Grandma, my mother called me dependable. If Ethan cancelled a visit because he was tired, she said he had too much pressure. Grandma noticed. One evening, as I sorted her medication into a weekly container, she said, "You know you're allowed to say no." I laughed. "To what?" "To everyone. I'm fine." That wasn't my question. I looked up. She was sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in a blue cardigan, watching me with the same clear grey eyes she had always had. "You make excuses for people before they even ask you to," she said. "Your mother taught you that being easy to manage is the same thing as being good." That's dramatic. It's accurate. I snapped the medication container closed. I help because I want to. I know. That is why you should be careful around people who help only when they want something. I thought she meant Ethan. Now I knew she meant more than him. Grandma Rose died 18 months later. It happened quietly. I had stayed with her the previous night because she was weak. Just before sunrise, she asked me to open the curtains. She looked toward the garden and said the roses needed trimming. Then she closed her eyes. For several minutes, I believed she had fallen asleep. At the funeral, Ethan gave a beautiful speech. He talked about childhood summers, her apple pie, and the values she had taught us. People cried. My mother squeezed his shoulder as though he had carried the family through the entire illness. I sat in the front row holding Grandma's handkerchief in my lap. After the service, my mother told me there would be no formal reading of the will. She said Grandma's estate was simple. "She left some personal items to me," she explained. "A few savings bonds go to the church. The house goes to Ethan." I remember staring at her. "All of it?" She sighed as though my question disappointed her. "Yes." "Did she say why?" "She believed he needed stability." "What about the things in the house?" "We'll sort those later." I felt ashamed for being hurt. Grandma could leave her property to anyone she wanted. That was what I told myself. Still, something did not feel right. 3 months before her death, she had asked me for my current mailing address and the correct spelling of my middle name. When I asked why, she said she was updating paperwork. I mentioned that to my mother. She waved it away. She probably meant the medical forms. Ethan moved into the house 6 weeks after the funeral. He said living there would help him save money while the restaurant became profitable. I asked whether I could collect a few personal items first. My mother said the family needed time. When I called Ethan, he told me everything had already been boxed. "Don't worry," he said, "I saved the sentimental stuff." The sentimental stuff turned out to be a ceramic bird, 3 cookbooks, and a bag containing old Christmas ornaments. Grandma's jewellery box was missing. So was the quilt she had promised me. When I asked about them, my mother said Grandma's wishes had been clear. What wishes? She wanted me to handle the personal property. I stopped asking. That is what I did whenever my family made me feel selfish for wanting an explanation. I stopped asking. For almost 2 years, Ethan lived in the house. The restaurant struggled. He changed the menu 3 times, replaced 2 managers, and spent money redesigning the dining room while vendors waited for payment. My mother continued helping him. Whenever she mentioned his problems, I offered financial advice. She never wanted advice. She wanted money. I refused to invest, and that refusal became evidence that I did not care about my brother. Then, one Thursday afternoon, my mother called and invited me to dinner at Grandma's house. Her tone was unusually warm. She said she wanted us to reconnect. I almost believed her. When I arrived, I saw the real estate agent's car in the driveway. The dining table had been cleared. Documents were already arranged. My family had not invited me to dinner. They had invited me to sign away my inheritance before I understood I had one. The morning after I refused, I called my friend Nora. Nora and I had worked together for 5 years before she left our company to join a non-profit. Her husband, Marcus, was an attorney who specialized in estate and property disputes. I told her the entire story. She was silent for several seconds. Then she said, "You need to stop communicating with them by phone." "Why?" "Because they can deny phone conversations, make them text or email." "I don't want this to become a war." "Mia, they arranged a property sale without telling you that you own half the property. It became a war before you knew there was a battlefield." Marcus agreed to meet me that afternoon. He reviewed the photographs I had taken of the contract and the title report. Then he searched the county property records. Within 20 minutes, he found a beneficiary deed recorded 6 years earlier. The deed transferred the house to Ethan Bennett and Mia Bennett in equal shares upon Grandma Rose's death. My name was there, my correct middle initial, my current address at the time, everything. Marcus turned the screen toward me. "This is not a technicality," he said. "You own half the house." I stared at the document. "Can my mother change it?" "Not after your grandmother's death." "She told me the house went entirely to Ethan." "Then she lied." The simplicity of that sentence hurt more than I expected. My mother lied. Not misunderstood, not overlooked, not made an innocent mistake. Lied. Marcus found the attorney who had prepared the beneficiary deed and Grandma's will. His name was Daniel Price. He was in his late 60s and still practiced from a small office downtown. When I called, his assistant placed me on hold. Less than a minute later, he answered personally. "Mia Bennett?" "Yes." "I've been hoping you would call." My stomach tightened. "Why?" "Because I sent you 3 letters after your grandmother died. All were returned." "I never received anything." "Your mailing address in the file was your mother's home." "I had lived there when Grandma first completed the documents." "Were the letters addressed to me?" "Yes." My mother had never mentioned them. Daniel asked me to come to his office. When I arrived, he placed a thick folder on the desk. Inside was Grandma Rose's will, the beneficiary deed, correspondence, and a written memorandum regarding the house. The deed was clear. Ethan and I owned equal shares. The memorandum explained that Ethan could live in the house for up to 2 years after Grandma's death if he paid property taxes, insurance, and ordinary maintenance. He was not allowed to sell, lease, or use the property as collateral without my written consent. I looked at Daniel. He used the house to borrow money. What kind of loan? I don't know yet. My mother said he made commitments based on the sale. Daniel removed his glasses. That would concern me. He then showed me another document. Grandma had established a small maintenance account containing $38,000. I was named the administrator. The money was intended to pay necessary property expenses during Ethan's 2-year occupancy. "What happened to it?" I asked. Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Your mother was authorized to deliver the account information to you after the funeral. According to the bank, the funds were transferred to a checking account jointly controlled by your mother and brother." My hands went cold. "Was that legal?" "Not without your authorization." "I never authorized anything." He opened another folder. The bank had a withdrawal form with a signature that looked like mine. It was not mine. The letters were shaped differently. The final stroke in my last name curled upward in a way I had never written it. Someone had signed my name. Daniel watched my face. Do you recognize the handwriting? I did. My mother had signed my name on permission slips and school forms when I was younger. Her version of my signature always had that upward curl. I wanted to say there must be another explanation. Instead, I whispered, I think my mother did this. Daniel did not react with surprise. He simply said, You need legal representation independent of me. I can provide records and testimony, but because I prepared the estate documents, I may become a witness. I told him I had already spoken to Marcus. Good, he said. Your grandmother was very specific. She worried that you would be pressured to surrender your share. I looked up. She said that? Yes. Why didn't she tell me? She believed putting everything in writing would protect you, without forcing you into a confrontation while she was alive. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. She underestimated them. Daniel looked at me carefully. No, I think she underestimated how determined you would be to avoid conflict. Before I left, he handed me a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front in Grandma's handwriting. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before opening it. Inside was a 4-page letter. My dearest Mia, you have spent much of your life giving people more grace than they earned. Grace is a beautiful quality, but without boundaries, it becomes permission. The house belongs equally to you and Ethan. I am allowing him to live there temporarily because he has not built the stability you have built for yourself. That does not mean he deserves more. You will be told that you do not need your share. Need is not the measure of fairness. You will be told that protecting yourself hurts the family. The truth is that anyone who requires your silence to preserve peace is not offering peace. They are asking for surrender. I hope I am wrong to worry, but if I am not, remember this. Saying no does not make you cruel. It only makes your answer clear. I read the letter twice. Then I placed my forehead against the steering wheel and cried. Not because of the money, because Grandma Rose had seen the problem before I was willing to see it. She knew exactly what they would say. You don't need it. You're hurting the family. Just sign. Marcus sent formal notices the next day. One to my mother, one to Ethan, one to the real estate agent, one to the title company. The letters stated that I did not consent to the sale, transfer, mortgage, or encumbrance of the property. They also requested a full accounting of all funds removed from the maintenance account. My mother called within minutes. I did not answer. She sent a text. You have gone too far. I replied with one sentence. Please communicate through my attorney regarding the property. Her next message arrived almost immediately. I am your mother, not a stranger. I stared at it for a long time before replying. Then you should not have treated me like one. After that, the family campaign began. Aunt Laura called me heartless. Cousin Rachel said Ethan's employees could lose their jobs if the restaurant closed. My mother told relatives I was trying to evict my brother from the only home he had. Ethan posted a vague message online about family members who cared more about money than blood. People who had not spoken to me in years began sending advice. Be the bigger person. Family is more important than property. Your grandmother would hate this fighting. Each message made me question myself. Then I opened Grandma's letter and read the line again. Need is not the measure of fairness. Marcus obtained the financial records. The maintenance account had been emptied within 4 months of Grandma's death. $12,000 went toward property taxes and repairs. The rest went into Ethan's restaurant. My mother had signed my name to authorize the transfer. The house itself had not been fully mortgaged because Ethan did not own the entire property, but he had obtained a high-interest business loan secured by his undivided ownership share. He owed $180,000. The lender expected repayment when the house sold. That was why everyone claimed there was no time. If the sale failed, Ethan would default. If Ethan defaulted, the lender could pursue his half of the property. My half was protected, but the situation would become expensive and complicated. When Marcus explained it, I felt sick. My family had not only hidden my ownership, they had spent money entrusted to me and endangered the property Grandma had tried to protect. I asked the question I had been avoiding. What happens if I sign the sale documents? The house sells, the lender is paid, closing costs are paid, then the remaining proceeds should be divided equally. Should be? They may present documents asking you to direct your proceeds elsewhere. To Ethan? Possibly. I remembered the contract on the table. There had been more pages beneath the signature page I saw. Marcus requested the complete closing package. The title company provided it. Buried near the end was a disbursement instruction directing nearly all net proceeds to an account controlled by Ethan. My signature line appeared at the bottom. They had intended for me to approve the sale and give up most of my share at the same time. The amount allocated to me was $25,000. The explanation listed it as a family settlement. I laughed when I saw it. $300,000 reduced to $25,000. They had probably expected me to be grateful. My mother continued insisting Grandma intended Ethan to receive everything, so Marcus asked Daniel to provide the memorandum and Grandma's letter. He also discovered that Grandma had recorded a video with Daniel on the day she signed the documents. She had wanted proof that she understood her decisions. I watched the recording in Marcus's office. Grandma sat behind Daniel's conference table wearing her blue cardigan. Her voice was weaker than I remembered, but her mind was clear. Daniel asked whether she wanted to leave the house equally to Ethan and me. Yes, she said. Why equally? Because they are equally my grandchildren. Do you understand that Ethan may need more financial help than Mia? I understand that Ethan has received more financial help for most of his life. Do you want Mia to surrender any part of her interest to him? No. Do you believe anyone may pressure her to do so? Grandma paused. Then she looked directly into the camera. Mia believes keeping the peace is her responsibility. Some people in this family take advantage of that. I want it clear that the house is half hers, not because she needs it more, because it is hers. I covered my mouth. Daniel asked one final question. What would you say to Mia if she feels guilty for protecting her interest? Grandma smiled faintly. I would tell her that a boundary is not a punishment. It is a door with a lock. People who love you will knock. Marcus stopped the recording. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he asked, What do you want to do? I thought about the obvious answers. Sue my mother for forging my signature, report Ethan to the lender, force an immediate sale through the court. All of those options were available. All of them would also create years of legal conflict. I want a complete accounting, I said. I want every dollar taken from the maintenance account documented. I want my mother and Ethan to admit what they did. And I want the house sold properly, with Ethan's debt paid only from his share. Marcus nodded. And if they refuse? Then we file everything. He sent the settlement proposal. The response came from an attorney my mother and Ethan hired together. They denied wrongdoing. They claimed I had verbally authorized the transfer from the maintenance account. They claimed the signature was added only as a convenience. They claimed Grandma's intention had been misinterpreted. They also accused me of delaying the sale in bad faith. Marcus read the letter aloud and then asked, Do you want the polite translation? Yes. They think you will get scared and give in. I surprised myself by smiling. They're going to be disappointed. The Hanleys withdrew their offer. The real estate agent cancelled the listing until ownership was resolved. Ethan defaulted on his business loan the following month. The restaurant's suppliers stopped extending credit. 2 weeks later, he closed for what he described online as temporary restructuring. My family blamed me. My mother appeared at my apartment on a Sunday morning. I saw her through the security camera. She stood outside holding a folder. I did not open the door. She called. I let it ring. Then she texted, Your brother may lose his business because of you. I replied through the intercom, His business was already failing. She looked up at the camera. Open the door. No. I need to speak to you face to face. You can speak to Marcus. This is not about the lawyer. It became about lawyers when you forged my signature. Her expression changed. For the first time, she looked frightened. I did not forge anything. The bank has the form. You gave me permission. No, I didn't. You told me to handle Grandma's expenses. I told you to pay the electric bill while I was out of town. I did not authorize you to transfer $26,000 to Ethan. She lowered her voice. You have no idea how much pressure he was under. And you decided that gave you the right to steal from me. I am your mother. That does not answer the question. She stared at the camera. Then she said something I will never forget. I knew you would be fine. As though that justified everything. She knew I would survive, so she believed it was safe to hurt me. I answered quietly, You always know I'll be fine. That is why you never worry about what you take from me. She began crying. For most of my life, her tears would have made me open the door. That day, I stayed where I was. You are choosing money over your family, she said. No, I'm choosing not to finance the family member you always choose over me. She left the folder outside my door. Inside was a new proposal. If I signed over my half of the house, Ethan would repay me $50,000 over 10 years. There was no collateral, no interest, no guarantee. I sent it to Marcus without responding. A week later, my cousin Rachel announced her engagement. The family planned a dinner at a local country club. I considered skipping it, but Rachel called and asked me to come. This is not about the house, she said. I don't want to lose my cousin because everyone else is fighting. So I went. For the first hour, things were polite. Then Aunt Laura raised her glass and began giving an unplanned speech about family loyalty. She talked about supporting one another during hard times. She said successful people had a responsibility to lift up those who were struggling. Everyone knew she was talking about me. My mother sat beside her, staring into her wine. Then Ethan stood. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, he began, which meant he had absolutely planned to say something. But since we're talking about family, I want to thank everyone who has stood by me during one of the hardest periods of my life. He looked directly at me. Some people believe legal ownership matters more than what a person has built. But I know Grandma would have wanted the house used to preserve jobs and protect the family. A few relatives nodded. My face burned. He continued. I hope someday Mia understands that being right on paper is not the same as doing the right thing. The room became very quiet. Everyone waited for me to react. The old version of me would have remained silent. I would have left early and cried in the car. Instead, I stood. You're right about one thing, I said. Being right on paper is not the same as doing the right thing. Ethan looked pleased for half a second. Then I continued. Grandma put the house in both our names. She also left $38,000 for maintenance. Mum forged my signature and transferred most of that money into your restaurant. My mother's chair moved sharply. Mia! I looked around the table. Ethan then borrowed $180,000 against his half of the property without telling me. When the restaurant failed, they arranged to sell the house. They invited me to what they called a family dinner and tried to get me to sign documents giving nearly all the proceeds to Ethan. Aunt Laura stared at my mother. Is that true? My mother stood. This is not the place. It became the place when Ethan used Rachel's engagement dinner to accuse me of betraying Grandma. Rachel looked furious. Why would you bring this into my dinner? She was looking at Ethan, not me. Ethan's face had gone pale. I took out my phone. I have Grandma's recorded statement. She said the house was half mine and that no one should pressure me to surrender it. My mother reached for my arm. Do not play that. I stepped back. Why not? Because your grandmother is dead and cannot explain the context. Her explanation is the context. I did not play the entire video. I played only one section. The room filled with Grandma Rosa's voice. Mia believes keeping the peace is her responsibility. Some people in this family take advantage of that. I want it clear that the house is half hers, not because she needs it more, because it is hers." No one spoke after the recording ended. Ethan looked around the table, searching for support. He found none. Aunt Laura turned to my mother. "You knew about this?" My mother sat down again. Her face had lost all colour. Rachel asked Ethan to leave. He argued. She repeated herself. "This is my engagement dinner. You used it to attack Mia while hiding what you did. Leave." Ethan pushed his chair back and walked out. My mother followed him. Aunt Laura remained seated. After several minutes, she looked at me. "I owe you an apology." I nodded. "Yes, you do." That answer surprised both of us. For once, I did not make it easier for someone to apologize without taking responsibility. The public story changed after that dinner. Relatives stopped sending me lectures about loyalty. A few apologized. Others became silent. My mother and Ethan could no longer rely on the family believing I was withholding something that never belonged to me. Marcus filed a civil complaint regarding the transferred maintenance funds and forged authorization. We also filed for partition of the house, asking the court to order a sale if Ethan refused to cooperate. That changed their position quickly. Their attorney requested mediation. The mediation lasted almost 9 hours. My mother sat on one side of the table with Ethan. I sat on the other with Marcus. At the beginning, Ethan insisted the restaurant would have succeeded if I had signed the original sale documents. Marcus placed the financial records in front of him. The business had been losing money for 14 consecutive months before the attempted sale. Vendor debts exceeded $90,000. Payroll taxes were overdue. The sale would not have saved the restaurant. It would only have delayed the closure. My mother argued that she had moved the maintenance money because she believed Grandma would have wanted to help Ethan. Daniel joined the mediation by video. He stated clearly that Grandma had refused to finance the restaurant while she was alive. The mediator asked my mother whether she had signed my name. She avoided answering. The mediator asked again. Finally, she whispered, "Yes." I had imagined that confession for weeks. I expected anger. Instead, I felt tired. "Why didn't you ask me?" I said. She looked at me. "Because I knew you would say no. That is why permission mattered. He was desperate. So you made me pay. I thought he would repay it. You did not risk your money, you risked mine. I have given him plenty of my money. That was your choice." She began crying. I didn't know what else to do. For the first time, I understood something clearly. My mother did not favor Ethan because she believed he was better than me. She favored him because he created emergencies. Helping me required respect. Helping Ethan made her feel necessary. Every crisis he caused gave her a role. And because I rarely created crises, she treated my stability as though it required no care. Understanding that did not excuse her, but it finally explained the pattern. The settlement was completed shortly before midnight. The house would be listed for sale by an independent agent. Neither my mother nor Ethan would control the transaction. Ethan's business loan would be paid only from his half of the proceeds. The missing maintenance funds would be restored from my mother's savings and Ethan's remaining share. I would receive reimbursement for documented property expenses I had paid while caring for Grandma. My mother and Ethan would sign written acknowledgements that Grandma left the house equally to both of us. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue additional damages related to the forged signature, provided every payment was made according to the agreement. Ethan signed first. He did not look at me. My mother stared at the document for a long time. Then she signed. As we stood to leave, Ethan said, "I hope this was worth destroying the family." I looked at him. "The family was not destroyed because I stopped giving you things." He laughed bitterly. "You got exactly what you wanted." "No, I wanted a brother who wouldn't lie to me. I wanted a mother who wouldn't forge my name. The money is only what I can recover." He had no answer. The house sold 4 months later for $678,000. The market had improved, and the independent agent had arranged minor repairs and better staging. After closing costs, taxes, reimbursements, and Ethan's loan were paid, my share was deposited directly into an account only I controlled. I stared at the balance for several minutes. It was more money than I had ever had at once. But the feeling was not excitement. It was relief. No one could redirect it. No one could explain why someone else needed it more. It was mine. Ethan received far less because of his debt. He moved into a one-bedroom apartment and took a management position at another restaurant. For the first time in his adult life, he had to earn a paycheck without convincing a relative to finance the next big idea. My mother sold her larger home and moved into a smaller condominium. Part of the settlement required her to replace the maintenance funds she had taken. She told several relatives I had forced her into financial hardship. I stopped defending myself. The documents existed. The truth did not require me to argue with everyone who preferred a different version. Before the Maple Avenue house transferred to the buyers, I spent one final afternoon there. The rooms were empty. Sunlight fell across the worn hardwood floor. The dining table where they had tried to make me sign was gone. The rose bushes outside had been trimmed. I walked through the kitchen and remembered Grandma Rose sitting in her blue cardigan, telling me I was allowed to say no. In the upstairs closet, I found a loose floorboard. Under it was a flat cardboard box. Inside were photographs, letters, and the quilt Grandma had promised me. The blue and white fabric smelled faintly of cedar. There was also a small digital recorder. I pressed the button. Grandma's voice filled the empty room. "Mia, if you are hearing this, then someone finally moved that ugly dresser." I laughed through my tears. She continued, "I am putting the quilt here because your mother thinks Ethan's future children should have it. Ethan does not have children, and you are the one who helped me sew the last row. So I am hiding it like a criminal." There was a pause. Then her tone became more serious. "I worry about you, sweetheart, not because you are weak, because you are strong in a way that makes people careless with you." I sat on the floor holding the quilt. "They assume you can carry one more burden because you carried the last one. They assume losing something will not hurt you because you do not fall apart in public. Do not let their confidence in your strength become an excuse for their cruelty." My eyes closed. I have tried to leave everything clearly on paper, but paper only protects someone who is willing to read it. Read it, Mia. Ask questions, make people explain, and when the answer is wrong, do not be afraid to say no. The recording ended. I stayed on the floor until the room grew dark. 6 months after the sale, I resigned from my corporate job. Not impulsively, I had planned carefully. I used part of my inheritance to open a small financial consulting firm focused on women managing family estates, inheritances, and major financial transitions. I called it Rose Ledger Financial. The first photograph in my office was not a framed certificate or professional headshot. It was a picture of Grandma Rose standing beside the garden fence, holding pruning shears and smiling at the camera. My work grew slowly, then steadily. Many of my clients were women who had been told they did not understand money. Women whose brothers controlled family property, women whose parents expected them to provide care but excluded them from financial decisions. Women who had signed documents because asking questions made them feel disloyal. I never gave legal advice, but I taught them how to read statements, organize records, document expenses, and walk into attorney meetings prepared. Every time a client said, "I don't want to cause trouble," I heard my own voice. I would ask, "Are you causing trouble, or are you discovering trouble that already exists?" My relationship with Ethan did not recover quickly. For nearly a year, we spoke only through occasional texts about family matters. Then, one evening he called. I almost ignored it. Something made me answer. He said, "I'm in therapy." I waited. He continued, "My manager told me I blame everyone when things go wrong. I wanted to quit. Then I realized he was right." "That must have been difficult." He gave a short laugh. "You don't have to sound so surprised." "I'm trying not to sound sarcastic." He was quiet. Then he said, "I'm sorry." For what? For lying about the house, for using the money, for letting Mum tell everyone you were selfish. I did not rescue him from the silence. He continued. I knew Grandma left you half. Mum showed me the deed after the funeral. She said we could convince you to give it up because you wouldn't want a fight. My throat tightened, even though I already knew most of it. Did you ever plan to tell me? No. Did you ever plan to repay the maintenance money? I kept thinking the restaurant would turn around. That isn't an answer. No, he said. I didn't have a real plan. I looked out the window of my office. What do you want from me now? I don't know. Maybe nothing. I just wanted to say it without explaining why I did it. That was the first apology he had ever given me without attaching an excuse. I accepted the apology. I did not tell him everything was fine. It was not. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. We began speaking occasionally, then meeting for coffee. I did not lend him money. He did not ask. My relationship with my mother was harder. She apologized during mediation because she had to. Outside that room, she continued describing herself as someone who made a mistake while trying to help her son. She wanted forgiveness without examining the beliefs that had made the betrayal possible. One afternoon, nearly 18 months after the sale, she came to my office. She stood beneath the rose ledger sign and looked at Grandma's photograph. You used the inheritance to start this? Part of it. It's nice. Thank you. She sat across from me. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I was unfair to you. I waited. She looked down at her hands. I kept telling myself you were stronger than Ethan, that you would always land on your feet. I heard you say that many times. I thought it was a compliment. It became permission to ignore me. She nodded slowly. I see that now. Do you? Yes. Her eyes filled with tears. This time, I did not feel manipulated. She was not crying to make me change a decision. She was crying because she was finally sitting with what she had done. I was afraid he would fail, she said. So you made sure I paid every time he did. I know. You read Grandma's letters to me. She looked up sharply. I saw the returned envelopes in your desk after the mediation. Her face crumpled. Yes. Why didn't you give them to me? Because the first letter said you owned half the house. And you had already told Ethan it was his. Yes. You chose the lie. Yes. That single honest word mattered more than every defensive explanation she had given before. I asked her, what happens the next time Ethan has a crisis? She answered quietly, I ask what he plans to do about it. And if he asks you for money? I decide based on what I can afford. I don't take it from someone else. It was not a dramatic reconciliation. I did not stand and hug her, but I agreed to have lunch with her the following week. Trust did not return because she apologized once. It returned in small pieces when her behavior changed. She stopped volunteering my time to relatives. She stopped telling people about my finances. When Ethan asked her to co-sign for a car, she said no. Then she called me afterward, not for praise, but because saying no had frightened her. I felt like a bad mother, she admitted. I said, maybe being a good mother sometimes means letting an adult son solve an adult problem. She laughed softly. That sounds like something your grandmother would say. She probably did. 2 years after the night at the dining table, I received an invitation from the Hanleys. They had eventually purchased Grandma's house after the ownership dispute was settled. They invited me to see the renovations. I almost declined. Then I went. The kitchen had been updated, but they kept the original cabinets and restored the old dining room floor. Denise led me to the backyard. The rose bushes were blooming. We didn't know which plants mattered, she said, so we kept all of them. I touched one of the pale pink roses. My grandmother planted these. Paul handed me a small wooden box. We found this behind a shelf in the garage. Inside were old metal labels Grandma had used to identify the different roses. Each label had a name: Peace, New Dawn, Second Chance. I smiled when I saw the last one. Denise asked whether I wanted the labels. Yes, I said, very much. Today, one of those labels sits on my desk beneath Grandma's photograph. Second Chance. For a long time, I believed second chances meant allowing people back into my life exactly as they had been before. I no longer believe that. Sometimes a second chance is not permission to repeat the past. It is an opportunity to build a different relationship with new rules. Ethan received a second chance to become responsible for his own life. My mother received a second chance to love me without assuming I would always accept less. And I received a second chance to become someone who could be generous without disappearing. People still ask whether the inheritance was worth the damage it caused. The question bothers me because it assumes the damage began when I refused to sign. It did not. The damage began when my family decided I was easier to deceive than to respect. It began when they opened my mail, when my mother signed my name, when Ethan spent money that was not his, when they planned a sale and expected me to surrender my share because I had been trained to avoid conflict. My refusal did not create those choices. It exposed them. I did not destroy my family by protecting what Grandma left me. I stopped helping my family pretend that exploitation was love. The night my mother pushed that pen toward me, everyone at the table believed they knew exactly what I would do. They believed I would feel uncomfortable. They believed Ethan would raise his voice. They believed my mother would say the word family. Then I would sign. The person I had been for most of my life probably would have. But Grandma had left me more than half a house. She left me evidence. She left me instructions. And in a letter I almost never received, she gave me permission to stop confusing surrender with peace. My family did not fall apart when I refused to sign. It fell apart the day they decided my love meant I would never say no. Refusing to sign simply gave us the chance to rebuild something more honest from what remained.